It's time now, ladies and gentlemen, for our keynote speaker, and we're very pleased to have with us, as Peter mentioned earlier, Eamon Devoy, who's the General Secretary of the Technical Engineering Electrical Union in Ireland. That's a union with 45,000 members. He's a board member of the National Qualifications Authority and SkillNets, which promotes and facilitates training and upskilling. He's a member of the Executive Council of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, which is, I guess, the equivalent of our ACTU. He's the Vice Chairman of Health and Safety Authority. He is involved in issues in accessing the Australian skills market. He was going to talk about it from an international perspective this morning. Would you welcome Eamon Devoy?
Good day. I'm getting the lingo. Just to say, my first outing into Australia was last year when I was invited over to Queensland by the TEEU there to attend their conference. And I started to discover very quickly, going to different workplaces and meeting some of the employers, that there was a great skills shortage for electricians in the country, and that some Irish electricians had made it over this far, and that they found the Irish electricians that they employed to be very competent at their job. However, we've been looking at that over the last 12 months, and there's a whole series of barriers and difficulties to overcome, and I wanted to talk to you today about some of those barriers and difficulties. Phil's already given you a brief on my role around the place, so we have 45,000 members in the TEEU. I just, one thing this morning, noticed that you've taken one of the E's out of EEOs. I wish I could take one of the E's out of TEEU, because most people don't know to say double E, and they go TEEU, and the media hate it. The news reporters really don't like it at all. So I think I've had to do something about that. We've 45,000 members. About 28,000 of those are electricians, and a lot of them are unemployed at the moment, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Yes, I'm involved with the Congress. I'm a member of the Executive Council and the General Purposes Committee, which is a smaller committee that's supposed to make all the real decisions. I'm the Secretary of the Private Sector Committee, so I deal a lot with the employers in the private sector, and I'm the Chair of the Congress Health and Safety Committee. TEEU has its own training company, Education, Training and Organisational Services. We always love these mouthfuls, don't we? So we call it ETOS. And it's VTAC approved. VTAC is the quality standard for training in Ireland, and we're also approved by City and Guilds. I'm director of the training company. I'm also the vice chair of the Health and Safety Authority in Ireland. The National Training Authority is very central to apprenticeship in Ireland, FOSS, and they have an advisory committee on apprenticeship, and I sit on that. And for apprentices who are finding it difficult now to finish out their apprenticeship, an awful lot of them have been made redundant, we have a recognition of prior learning committee, so any training courses that they do can be taken into account to try and assist them in finishing their apprenticeship. I'll tell you a lot more about the apprenticeship during this course of this presentation. I'm on the board of the National Qualifications Authority of Ireland, and again, I'll mention that again. And SkillNets is the funding body through which funds flow from the government and from Europe to the private sector. And the TEEU plays an active role in that. And we also get funding for training our workplace representatives through that also. So look, I don't know if you're familiar with that little map, but that's Australia, and if you look again a bit more closely, the little green patch there is the Republic of Ireland, sometimes referred to as Eire. We don't like that, but anyway, other people do. And it's the same size as Tasmania in geographical terms, or in area. And so it really puts into perspective the size of Ireland. And when you think that there are 80 million diaspora in the world claiming Irish heritage of some description, it's a very small country to have achieved that. Even Barack Obama has been over recently reclaiming his Irish roots. So I heard a song one time down in a pub called Doolin in County Clare, and I often wished I got the words of it. Each verse was about some prominent person in the world, and the chorus was "Tura lura laddie, the whole world's turning paddy." So I don't need to talk to you too much about the Irish relationship with Australia. I think it's well established. Over 1/3 of the population in Australia are of Irish descent. More than 500,000 Irish men and women migrated, were either transported voluntarily or otherwise over the last 100 years. And obviously the Irish people have, as part of the new community in Australia, have helped to develop the country to the stage that it's at now. You have another step to go. You have to be a republic before you're finished, but that's your own business. During the mid-1800s, there was a famine in Ireland, and 8 million people were there at one time, and then it diminished to 2.7 million through mainly death through the famine and people being deported and deciding to emigrate. Life expectancy amongst women, and I particularly point to women here because a colleague of mine has written a paper on the women of Kildare that were transported to Australia, and they had the cunning to discover that if you were involved in stealing, then you could end up in prison or be hanged. But if you were involved in arson, the automatic sentence was to be deported to Australia. And so they went around burning haycocks and crops belonging to the landlords and so on, and very quickly the number of Irish women being deported for a better life and a longer life became a way of life in Kildare. Most of them were transported to Tasmania, and others then, for political reasons, were transported to Fremantle, a more secure prison there for political activists. And one of my ancestors, John Devoy, was involved in rescuing some Republicans there, some Fenians there a few years back. Anyway, that's another story. I better get on with the business of why I'm here. Currently, there's about 15% unemployment in Ireland. Across the Eurozone, there's the unemployment level is running at 11.5%. So clearly there's no real job opportunities around Europe for people. Of the unemployed population in Ireland, there's 138,000 craft and related employments involved in that. So clearly there's a lot of skilled workers with no work to do. Youth unemployment is running at 30% in Ireland. It's running at 50% in Greece and 50% in Spain. So just to give you an idea, it's bad in Ireland. It's not as bad as it can be elsewhere in Europe. Many craft workers are heading for pastures green, to use that old euphemism. And Australia and Canada seem to be the destinations of choice. So the apprenticeship system, there are 26 statutory-based standards achieved apprenticeships in Ireland. There are a minimum of 4 years of blended learning, the word that came up several times this morning. They're regulated by the Department of Education and Skills. They're delivered by the National Training Authority, FOSS, and the academic and learning piece is achieved through delivered through the Institutes of Technology. And the apprenticeship system is designed by subject matter experts from both sides of industry, the employers and trade unions. That's a slide from the FOSS website, and it's clearly, well, it's not that clear, I suppose, but it's designed to give you some idea how the system works. The top boxes are the on-the-job phases, so you must have an employer to be an apprentice. You must be employed. You go through your probationary period, and you make it through that. Then you go on to the phases off the job, which the phases off the job are the three lower ones on the graph. And so you progress, and you must reach a level of attainment at each of these modules. So on the job, the employer now has to have somebody designated and trained to be a mentor, as you were referring to people earlier on, and they will sign off the different modules that the apprentices have to undertake while they're on the job. Off the job, it's into a FOSS training centre for 20 weeks, where they get a lot of the theory and practical safety training and stuff that are generic among a number of the trades, but then they get into specific maths and science and so on and to do with the specific trade. Back to on the job, phase 3, with the employer for a minimum period of 6 months. Back off the job to an Institute of Technology for between 10 and 11 weeks, depending on the trade. There's a trade called electrical instrument, and it's 20 weeks off the job, which is an exception to the rule. Back on the job for phase 5 with the employer again for a minimum period of 6 months, off the job to phase 6, and when that's achieved, you finish out your apprenticeship for a minimum period of 3 months. But the rules are very clear. It's a minimum of 4 years. Even if apprentices get through all the academic phases and they've achieved all 7 phases, they must achieve 4 years. There's quite a few apprentices stuck in the system who are made redundant and can't get an employer to take them on to finish out the last period of time. So we've developed a solution to that for apprentices. We've placed a lot of apprentices with other employers that are prepared to take them on, and there's European funding. And an unemployed 4th-year apprentice would get €400 from the state, and while unemployment rate, the payment for unemployment's out just under €200, an apprentice would get 400 from the state to go finishing out his apprenticeship at another employer. But there's a competency determination test has been developed, so where an apprentice goes into a training centre for 2 weeks. He's given an exercise in his trade. If it's electrical, he's told that he must, he's given a project. He's told he must to cost a job. He has to decide what materials are going to be used. And he has to make a drawing of the job, and he has to make a work plan, and he has to then put that work plan into effect. And he's given the materials and the time to do it. And the project must work at the end of the day in the allotted time frame. So then the state are satisfied, having gone through that process, that he has reached the required standard. So if you can get through that, it's a terminal test effectively for finishing out your apprenticeship. I mentioned earlier the 26 apprenticeships. TEEU organised in 18 of those, and we don't organise in the construction industry or in printing. But the 3 in red there, electrical instrument and instrumentation, and it's another Irish solution to an Irish problem. There was only an electrical trade, and then they decided in industry, but there's not a lot of inward investment in Ireland from overseas, particularly American multinationals, and there's quite a lot of integrated technologies, process control and automation and so on, that is very difficult for a standard spark to work to. So we created this new apprenticeship called electrical instrument. And then there was an attempt to embed that in the electrical trade and have go back to having one trade, electrician, and have the instrumentation embedded in the trade. But there was a dispute by the instructors, all sparks of course, in the training centres that, well, I'm the electrical trainer and I'm not moving from my position, and the electrical instrument guys said the same. And so, the instrument guys said the same. There was a second apprenticeship was instrument, I beg your pardon. And then instead of having the instrument embedded in the electrical, they decided to have the electrical instrument trade because they couldn't resolve the dispute with the instructors in the centre. So we've ended up, instead of having 1, we ended up with 3. Nothing new. Anyway, there are other trades that are akin to the industry. Aircraft mechanic is avionic, and therefore there's electrics in that. Refrigeration and air conditioning is also quite akin to the electrical family of trades. This is the National Framework of Qualifications. I don't know how clear it is, but it's a photocopy. It's a photo of a copy that I stuck in, and I don't think it might be a bit blurred. Apprenticeship comes out at level 6 on the framework. They started off in Ireland some years ago talking about ladders of learning, and they decided ladders was one person looking down on another person, so they came up with this fan. So the apprenticeship system is at level 6, where you get a merger of further education and higher education. So there's a blend there between the two. And when they tested the apprenticeships to put them on the framework, they said that with some apprenticeships there were some level 7 outcomes because the maths and science in the electrical trade in particular is quite high, and the pass rate is 70%. On the framework at level 6, if you place an Australian electrician on that framework, or an electrician from America or Britain, they come out at level 5. It's not that the Irish electricians are any different, they're all electricians, but the learning outcomes are higher in the Irish one, and that enables them to move into a diploma programme or degree programme with a year's grace, or a year is taken into account because they have the competency at the maths and science in the trades. Then really the detail of why I'm here is about the problems that are emerging. I started to learn a lot about this last year when I was here, and I've been working with EEOs and the ETU and Future Skills. Future Skills is a wholly owned company by the ETU in Queensland, and they deliver skills training in that area, the same as my own company in Ireland, ETOS. And so together we've been looking at how to solve these problems. A lot of trades don't need licenses, and you're probably aware of that, but the electricians, line workers and technical cable joiners and plumbers are required to have a license. So we've put into place this offshore technical skills record system where we can achieve the attainment of that in Ireland before people leave, and that's helped a lot of people. We'll get into the detail in a minute. The OTSR process involves 3 main stages. People log on to the Australian website, and it's a self-evaluation process, and at the end of that process, the computer issues if the person makes it through with all the appropriate questions answered, they're issued with a number, and that number then stays with them through the process as recognising who they are. Step 2 then, they need to enrol with an approved training provider to have their qualifications assessed, and ETOS is that in Ireland as a subcontractor to Future Skills. And finally, people have to undertake a technical interview and a practical skills assessment with a training provider from Australia. So the person has to be an Australian person who is approved and qualified to carry out the assessments, and Future Skills International do that from here for Irish electricians. There are very significant challenges facing people who want to come here appropriately. There are a lot of people coming over on holiday visas, and all sorts of peculiar arrangements come into play in those situations. There are licensing issues, there's migration intricacies, there's visa complexities, there's relocation stress, and the migration sharks are a whole story all to themselves. On the licensing front, many electricians travelling are unaware of the complexities and of the licensing system. As a matter of fact, I've met a few that didn't even know that they required a license to work here. They get here, they're not getting a license, they don't have a license to work when they get here. They're being taken on as trades assistants, they're being paid as trades assistants, but they're being put to work as electricians. That's the common story. Those who have achieved a provisional licence are also being told by some of the employers that, oh, well, you don't have an A licence, so you don't get the full rate. So there's an awful lot of that going on, quite a lot of exploitation. I put a slide together some weeks ago, because Millie had me killed to get the presentation over here in good time. And my understanding was that in Western Australia that the system, the ARTC pathway, had finished up, but it hasn't, because I was in Queensland last week and it's working merrily away. So I thought I was well informed, but I wasn't as well informed as I thought I might be. On the migration intricacies, these migrant agents have turned relocation into a labyrinth of complexity. Really and really, they make it out to be something that it's not. They betray it as an impossibility without part with thousands of dollars to these guys who are totally unscrupulous about what they're doing. I attended a seminar one day only to realise that everyone else there was less than half my age, so I had to pretend I was there representing my son's interests. And he was on holiday and was very anxious to get the information, so some of the things I heard and listened to made my hair stand on end. I mean, it was €100 for this, it was €2,000 for that, it was another €500 for this, it was another. Your CV has to be in a particular format. I'll reformat your CV for you. It's only €80 a page to have your CV reformatted. And it went on and on and on. Dreadful stuff. On the visa complexity, I looked at this myself and found that the website there is very, very complex. There's a whole range of different types of visas depending on the place of origin, the temporary or permanent nature, and whether the migration was permanent or temporary. So there's a whole range of things. Really what it needs is some system that puts up some examples, but I'll refer to that later on. No information is provided on the other side of the world. There is a sort of a consulate in Dublin. They say they're not authorised to discuss this matter. We went to the Australian embassy in London, and they also said the same thing. They couldn't deal with it. They couldn't deal with questions on this matter. As a matter of fact, now that they've met us and they know that we're doing this, we're getting lots of references from the Australian embassy and the consulate, embassy in Britain, and the consulate in Dublin. They're sending people to the TEEU. This is all feeding the sharks, obviously, because the sharks are saying, "Oh, we're the only ones that know these pathways to Australia, and we can do all of that." On the relocation stress, many people are leaving. Some individually, others are taking their families, and some of them are even grandparents coming with them. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. There's significant financial involvement. Most of the people, whether they like it or not, getting involved with these migration agents, and the cost of the visas, the cost of skills assessment, the travel and subsistence costs, and then when they get here, they have to sustain themselves for a period of time unless they have an employer to walk into. And getting a 457 in Ireland before you leave is almost they're like gold dust. They're almost impossible to achieve before people arrive. On the sharks front, a lot of them are lawyers. An awful lot of legal companies doing it, and legal fees at the best of times are quite expensive. So to give you some idea what they're charging for people to go about getting them visas and so on. And there's the other ones that are around saying that, well, I'm a spark and I know all this and I have all the contacts over the other side, and you stick with me, I'll look after you. And really and truly, the stories that I've heard subsequent to people going through some of these agents that make the hair stand on your back of your head. I was with Kent's in Perth on Friday, and they had one employee who went through a process, paid €10,000 to a migration agent who gave him all the paperwork and a letter saying, enclosed, please find your permanent migration, da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. So it was just a certificate inside in the folder. He didn't take it out and scrutinise it. He came over here. He was working for Kent's. He was here for more than 12 months, and he had some reason to go and check with the situation, and discovered when he went into the appropriate government department, they said, you're very lucky that you came in here, because if you'd left the country and you would never get back in because you'd overstayed the 12 months. And now that you've come to us and we understand the situation, we'll fix it for you. But the guy was told he had a permanent, maybe it shouldn't have happened that way, maybe he should have had a good sense to read all the paperwork, but he had a letter confirming that enclosed was a permanent migration visa, which he didn't have at all. On the other hand, people that are going to Canada, the Canadians are very clear about what they want to do. They want to, the same situation, fly in, fly out, drive in, drive out, the same sort of resource sector going on there. They'll come to Ireland, they'll interview people in Ireland, they'll pay their relocation expenses sometimes for not only the individuals but for their families to relocate to Australia. And the licensing system is only a tick box arrangement. Maybe it shouldn't be, but that's what it is. So just in relation to the Australian solution to all the problems I've just been outlining, in late August, early September this year, the TEEU, along with Future Skills, we put a pilot program in place, and FOSS, the National Training Authority, assisted in this by making one of their training centres available to us. We put 7 unemployed and 7 employed electricians through the program. An assessor came from Future Skills, and we gave them the FOSS put it on a week's refresher course just to give the guys a recap of what they had done in the colleges when they were there, because some of them hadn't been in touch with the college for a long time. That was unrelated to the test, and then the assessor came and carried out the test. The skills assessment program is low voltage insulation, motor circuit control, disconnect and reconnect procedures, a 2-hour exam. The process altogether lasts between 7 and 8 hours, and it only involves 4 people at a time. To give you an idea, that's one of the guys doing his motor control test. That's on the motor end, and that's the panel end, same guy. These are some of the guys doing the exam. Now, this is a very busy photograph, so that's Ross Franks from Future Skills, who came over to carry out the assessment. That's Patricia Cassell's the manager of the training centre. The guy on the left is the quality assurance guy in Foss. The other guy is the trainer who brought the lads through the first week of giving them a bit of recall on what they had been doing during their apprenticeship. And these 4 guys are the 4 guys that were carried out the assessment on that day. This is a young lad. He's one of the youngest lads I've seen heading this way. He was unable to find work in Ireland. He decided, as he said himself, I'm not following the crowd to Perth, I'm heading for Queensland. And he was after going through lots of different processes to find out how to go there appropriately, and he discovered the union was doing this programme, so said he was one of the lucky ones to get onto it. This guy is employed. He decided he wanted to come to Australia. He's been wanting to come to Australia for some time. He's out of apprenticeship 11 years, and his wife and 2 children. He has a job to go to. He's moved to the Gold Coast, since moved to the Gold Coast. And again, he recognised that without the process that we put him through, he wouldn't have been able to achieve his provisional licence without going through other rigmaroles. Morris is a man in his 40s. He's a sole trader, electrician. He actually does a bit of technical training on some of our courses. He had spent €6,000 with a migration agent that came to nothing, got nothing for his money. You've said that the course that was run for the refresher course on the apprenticeship was very useful to people getting the apprenticeship, and he was very grateful to the TEEU Australia for playing their part in the role of certification. Martin is an electrician, as you can see. He's not a young man. His son is an electrician, he's already working in Brisbane. He's heading out this way. He has a job to come to. And he just said he didn't want to, his wife, and well, particularly his wife, didn't want to be without their grandchildren, so that's why he was making the move. So again, same sort of testimonial. They wouldn't have been able to do it without the course that we ran. Now, I've been cheeky enough to make a few recommendations. There's no reason why a qualified electrician in Ireland is the same as a qualified electrician in Australia. There are no differences. Why it takes 12 months to do gap training is beyond my comprehension. So I honestly believe it's possible to do whatever training is necessary to achieve the licence. I think it's possible to do it offshore. It's not necessary to have to do it onshore. That's a view I hold. You don't have to agree with that. That's a view I hold. Nobody, none of the employers are prepared to do anything about assisting the people that are coming here. They want them to come here, and then they want to interview them here and take them on here. It's a hell of a process, a hell of an expensive process for people that want to come. If there is a demand and there is a need for electricians, I think that maybe the Australian government should do something about it. I actually tried to get the Irish government to do something about it on the basis that if they were to pay the costs of the assessments and so on, it'd be a very small amount of money compared with the €10,000 that have to be paid them an unemployment benefit as a single person for a year. But they said it was they would like to do it, but it's politically too hot of a data to be effectively paying people to leave. They said they just couldn't live with the concept. But I think if it's a serious need, if there is a serious skill shortage and people are needed, I think people in those situations should get some help. There should be one single system. Why there's 2 and more is beyond me, and there are more. Some of them are appropriate and some of them are inappropriate, I understand. Some of them have been running, have been closed down this year. So there's a lot going on. People have been trapped in some of the, after paying out a lot of money, being trapped in some of the processes, and I'm not going to name them because that's not why I'm here. But there should be one single system for, and I know Australia, I know we have our own states, I know all the different states want to do their own thing, but quite frankly, on something as important as qualifications for electricians, there should be a single system. The visa process, there should be simple examples up there for people to know what they're going after and what's appropriate to be pursued, and then they can pursue it themselves rather than employing lawyers to do it for them. And then perhaps an industry-wide awareness program about what a qualified electrician with a provisional licence actually is, and that he's entitled to work and he's entitled to be paid. And certainly exploitation should be avoided in this and any other set of circumstances. So look, I'm sorry I ran over my time. I didn't think I would, but I have to add in a few stories. So look, the bottom line as far as I see it is if there are skill shortages continuing in Australia, and I think in the resource sector, they may be short-lived. There is a recession in Ireland. Hopefully it's also short-lived. So if we can help each other mutually by providing you with, lending you some of our electricians for a period of time, that helps to resolve your resourcing problems and helps to give these guys some work and sustain themselves and their families, I think that's a win-win for everybody. I hope it continues to work, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.